federal government announced a partial shutdown, and we've been working very hard in anticipation of this terrible day. I can tell you that every family and every small business and every governor, is looking for some predictability, so we know what tomorrow is going to bring and what next year is going to bring. And this shutdown is just the opposite of that. There are a lot of families out there who are probably pretty worried about their health care and whether they'd be able to take care of their kid if there was a real emergency, worried about food and how they're going to put a meal on the table. A lot of other things will impact you. You're a senior and you want some maybe help on Social Security or Medicare. You're going to make a call to the office, and we're not sure whether anybody's going to be there to answer the phone. So we've been planning for this for a while. It's not our first rodeo. It's not our first shutdown. But these guys in Washington have got to get their act together. Republicans have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. Somehow we're able to put together a budget. It's actually a budget in balance. We get that done on a timely basis and give families and businesses some confidence that tomorrow's going to be a better day. So that said, worked really hard with Manisha and Andrea and Jeff, trying to do what we can to figure out where we are most at risk. What programs could be cut? How much do we have in reserve so we know that we can keep things going for a while? And when the impact could be felt. Probably the most immediate impact that we've been focused on is WIC, that is led by Manisha and Department of Public Health. The WIC program is shorthand for Women, Infant, and Children. It's about 50,000 moms with very young children and infants. It helps support them in terms of some basic food support and formula to keep them going during a complicated time. Our reserves are limited, and we're going to have to backstop that given the reserves that we have as the state of Connecticut. So I want those young families, those moms, to know that your WIC card will continue to be good, for the foreseeable future. We're making sure that the government does not take that away from you. And next up is probably the SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits, the band formerly known as food stamps. And that's pretty costly. That's, I think it's about $72 million a month. Takes care of hundreds of thousands of folks who, they now say food insecure, but worried about going hungry. And probably more urgent in this day and age where there are going to be a lot of furloughs and people temporarily losing pay or worried about losing their job, where food support is even more important. And, the good news there is that we've got enough in reserve to keep the SNAP benefits going so nothing changes, at least through the end of this month, the month of October. And we'll see hopefully this shutdown is temporary and we'll have things resolved by then, but it's something we're watching very carefully. In terms of food support, working with the legislature in our current budget, we tripled the amount of money we got to Food Share, which is the food bank, which provides emergency food support for folks who need it. A lot of that was related to the fact that the Trump administration stopped sending tractor-trailer loads of fresh food up to Food Share, starting at the beginning of this year. That's about 1 million meals that have been taken away. So we're trying to backfill and make up some of that as best we can. Probably next up is healthcare. And, there we're worried about the idea that they're going to jack up the cost of health insurance for folks on the exchange. That does not happen until the end of this calendar year. But that said, a lot of you are going to get a notice saying, watch out, your health insurance costs could go up quite a bit. That notice goes out in the middle of October. We've been working really hard with James Michelle and the Access Health team, coming up with alternatives for folks who may be affordability. They're driving up the cost of health care, which is so core to people. And James Michelle has come up with at least several alternatives on the silver plan and the gold plan and others that maybe we can help people out if we don't get this resolved over the next couple of weeks. It's surprising to me that they can't figure this out. I mean, obviously, the Democrats feel pretty strongly, as do I, that you don't want to jack up the price of health insurance for people, you know, on the exchange. And we want to do everything we can to make sure that health care stays accessible and affordable for all of us. And they say that is what they want to do as part of making sure we can end this lockdown, this shutdown. The Republicans have sort of said, we'll worry about health care later. Let's handle the shutdown now. That seems to me there's a deal to be had there that doesn't put our families in such incredible distress and uncertainty. And I really urge the players to get to the table and get this done. Look out for the people when it comes to affordability. You could see their health care costs go through the roof, wonder about how their food's going to be paid for. And do what you can to get back to the regular course of business. You guys have got to figure out how to do a budget. We do it here in Connecticut. Why can't you? With that, I've got Andrea Barton-Reeves is hovering in the background there, who can tell you a lot about health care. And Manisha can tell you a lot about what we're doing on the WIC program. And Jeff can tell you about other plans we have going forward, depending on how long this shutdown lasts.
Well, how much reserves, how long will the WIC benefits last? You said SNAP might last through the end of the month. When
WIC benefits, look, right, it's a couple $100,000 a day. Is that right?
$200,000 a day to run the program.
Yeah, so we're going to keep that going, for the foreseeable future. And I'd like to think things are going to happen to resolve that. SNAP is obviously a very different game.
Yeah, well, what do you do? I mean, you said it's $72 million a month, I believe, is that?
Yeah. Well, I told you what we've done in terms of food share, some sort of emergency backup support. And obviously that's the type of federal program that I don't think it's going to get cut. I think they will probably backstop some of this, but I don't know. And we're going to figure that out over the next few weeks.
Where's this money coming from? Is it money that is not being used for salaries? Is it money being pulled from other accounts? Is there contingency funds in these line items?
For example, the WIC program, we've got cash reserves that are there in part to take care of emergencies just like this. Again, I've talked to a lot of my fellow governors. They're not in the same position. They may not be able to provide the same support that we are.
Are you contemplating, just one question, I'll be quiet. Are you contemplating another loan program as you instituted in the last shutdown where federal employees furloughed and laid off federal employees? I think there's maybe like 140 took advantage of it.
So first of all, state employees who are paid for by the federal government, of which there are about 1,300, we're going to continue paying for them. These are folks, they inspect bridges and make sure they're safe. They go to our hospitals and make sure they're doing their job. We're going to be able to manage that. But to your point, Ken, there's an awful lot of other federal employees who may be furloughed. The guy up at the control tower at Bradley Airport. I think they keep working, but they're not getting paid. Last time around, we worked out a deal with the banks where we could make sure they received an interest-free loan to help them cover during this, very complicated time. I am looking into that, but we did that last time, Ken, knowing that the federal government was going to pay back those folks who are furloughed. This time around, there's a guy named Russ Vout down there at OMB that's saying that we may fire these people, or I can't guarantee you they're going to get hired back. So there's a lot more risk to us to guarantee that, so I'm looking into it.
Governor, what are your concerns on a big picture? Obviously, if the shutdown goes on for weeks and months, that's going to have a much bigger impact. But we're hearing, there are millions of dollars in federal cuts for many of the programs, Medicaid, SNAP, WIC. Are you prepared to go back into a special session? And do you think states now have to, can they afford to fill these holes?
Look, as I told you with SNAP at $72 million a month, we cannot make up all of this. But this is what I believe will be a temporary shutdown. And I think most of this is going to come back. So I'm hoping that we can backstop and make sure people are, can rest assured that nothing's going to change dramatically for them, at least, through the month of October. We can cover them. What I'd like to think, saner heads will prevail down in Washington.
And I guess we heard earlier that 140,000 people, people are being kicked off of certain benefits, right? SNAP benefits because of some of the federal guidelines. Would you ever consider using some of the surplus money or reserve to fill those, provide those services?
Well, I told you that thankfully we have these reserves and able to make people whole when it comes to WIC and some other support for our federal subsidized employees here in the state of Connecticut. Again, can I make up all that shortfall? No. Or is Jeff and I working with the commissioners to make sure we take care of the most vulnerable? Yes. One step at a time. I'm dealing with a shutdown that happened 11 hours ago and doing everything I can to take care of people with that
So no
urgency.
Going to special session right now.
We can have a special session. We're talking about the special session. It revolves around a couple of things, including housing, and we'll see what's needed. What I can do is the things I told you right now we're able to handle just to give people some comfort over the next few weeks that nothing's going to change for them.
Just on the reserves, just to clarify, are you saying this is reserve money for WIC and others? These are extra money that are in departmental accounts, or by the word reserves, you mean the rainy day fund?
These are in departmental accounts. Do you want to take that, Jeff?
Sure.
Why don't you come over here?
It's a multi-stage process. We'd have administrative actions first to make sure we're continuing to administer the federal programs like WIC. And that's just an accounting thing for us. We'd create a receivable. We'd continue to make the payments. And then when we get the federal money, it would reimburse it. So it would be the federal funds that we'd be administering. Down the road, if there's going to be a shortfall in a federal funding line, we'd have to make a decision about whether or not we're going to run a deficiency in our current Appropriations Act or take more extraordinary actions that the Governor and the General Assembly would have to.
And also, just to be clear, also on the federal money, was there any spillover? By that I mean, does the federal money end October 1st, period, or is there spillover money that you had from federal money that can go to cover some of these things?
Our agencies tell us that for SNAP and some other programs, they are good through October. They have available federal funds through October. If it lasts longer
Through
than
the
that,
Halloween, by that is what you mean?
yes,
Okay.
we'll have problems after that if it's not resolved by then.
Governor, you just seem to express some uncertainty about a special session. There is a separate but related issue about having contingency funds available to fill federal shortfalls. The Treasurer has indicated he needs clear statutory authority by November 1st to defer, to set aside funds that would otherwise automatically go into the pension. So are you going to be calling a special session prior to that? And have you settled on a number on how much money will be deferred?
No, we haven't settled on that number. We got 3 or 4 different things that are interchanged. There's the shutdown. That's what we're talking about today. And we're talking about SNAP and WIC and things that will be directly impacted over the course of the next month. Then there's the Trump budget that has dramatic cuts in it, including cuts to subsidies. And a lot of that is what you're talking about, Paz, when you talk about what are we going to do to make up some of those shortfalls going forward, and would we put additional money into our rainy day fund just in case of that eventuality? I think the answer to that question is yes. What's the exact amount? I can't tell you that yet. We did add about $700 million to the rainy day fund just a few years ago and went from 15 to 18%. So I feel like we're in better shape than any other state in the country, but I'm happy to talk to the legislature if they think we should be doing more.
Governor, can I follow Paz's question though? Because I think I know where he's going with this. I get the part how it's premature now. You're saying it's premature to go toward the volatility adjustment or the FY '25 operating surplus. But the treasurer said he has to tell the pension fund actuaries by the first week of November what of the volatility adjustment, what of the operating surplus is going to the pensions, meaning after the first week of November, that money's off the table. So if you are going to use it, you don't have that much time to weigh. Do you anticipate that if this shutdown is prolonged and you get to the first week of November, you're going to have to pull some of this money?
Yeah, there's a lot of hypotheticals in there, but to your bigger point, we're going to know so much more in the next couple of weeks. But Keith, probably these guys can't get their act together. We're probably going to have a shutdown. There are probably going to be some holes in the budget. We're probably going to have a special session between now and November 1st. And probably the later in the month, the more we will know.
Can you talk a bit about your conversations with the congressional delegation? You've said at least twice now, make a deal, make a deal. You've struck, I think, a more conciliatory tone than Senator Murphy has about the hard lines of what concessions could be offered by the Democrats. What are you telling the delegation in terms of?
I'm with the delegation. You know, all they want to do is hold people harmless. All they want to do is say, don't jack up my health care costs. Don't do that. And then you've got a clean bill, and we will make sure there's no government shutdown. That's what they're saying. I think that's room for negotiation. I've heard, President Trump, hey, we can talk about this. I've heard the president, whoever the Republican leader in the Senate saying, let's talk about this great jacking up of the cost of health care. Let's do it right after the, we get the shutdown ended. So I think I see room for compromise there, but I think it's really important you hold people harmless and don't hammer them on their health care costs.
You've been talking, I know, about state employees that are fully federally funded, making sure that they remain whole. One thing that's interesting about this shutdown is you right now have a regiment of your National Guard deployed into a conflict area. They got families here. Are you thinking about any conversations maybe with General Yvonne about making sure that their families that are here at home, yes, they'll get back pay eventually, but what can you do for those troops that are deployed?
I think General Yvonne said, maybe you know this, Jeff, that those guys are on the front lines. I think they are continuing to get paid, but a lot of mechanics and civilian folks who assist the Guard are not getting paid. These are the folks that fix tanks and jeeps and helicopters and everything else. I just think it's shocking. These guys on the front lines doing everything they can to keep us safe are not getting paid. That said, I'd like to think this thing's going to be resolved. It's taken care of very soon.
Yeah, could you give us an idea of some of the other programs that might be running into trouble? Because I was looking back at my clips from the last shutdown. It looked about 7 weeks into it, or about 6 weeks into it. Money for school, lunch programs was gonna dry up, and I think I forget there were 2 other examples. So what's sort of
Department of Education told us that they've got about 90 days worth of funding for the school lunches, to the extent that the feds are. I'm sorry. Should I move over here? Department of Education tells us they've got at least 90 days of funding for the school lunch program for the federal contribution there. So that's not an immediate concern for us, but down the road it might be.
what are some of the other programs that might be?
The governor mentioned SNAP. We've got 30 days worth of SNAP. There's a few others out there. There's the LIHEAP program that everyone is concerned about on an annual basis. We're good through October, I'm told, on that. But if that lasts longer than 30 days, we may have to think about what we're going to do there.
You want to add to that, Andrea?
I do, so thank you. The Secretary is correct in that we have enough resources to be able to have benefits for SNAP through the end of October. And the same is true for LIHEAP. So in our LIHEAP grant program, we always hold back a carryover of some percentage of the funds that we are provided from the previous year. Because it's not uncommon for the LIHEAP program to have a delay in actually providing those benefits to us, so we always hold back previous amounts of money. This year, because we're in shutdown, we will be using those LIHEAP funds in order to get the program started, to be able to take applications through October. If we're past October, then obviously we'll have to make a different determination as to whether or not and how people will get heating assistance. When it comes to, I just want to make sure I don't misspeak. So when it comes to our Medicaid program, we do have funding through the first quarter of 2026, and we have been assured by the feds that that will be the case. And then there are two other kinds of block grants, our community service block grant and our state services block grant. We do have carryover funds that will carry us through the first quarter of 2026. Those are the funds that primarily help us to fund our community action agencies, which are very essential in supporting people who are poor and low income. And that's really where we stand in terms of the block grants and the other programs that we administer at the Department
And
of
when you
Social
say
Services.
the 2026 fiscal, you're
Mhm.
talking about the federal fiscal year, which runs September 1st, October 1st to September 30th.
We're talking about
Or
our
state-
fiscal year.
The state fiscal year.
Yes, talking about our fiscal year. I'm talking about the first quarter. Which ones are you referring? You're talking
No,
about?
I was just
The
wanting
block
to make
grant.
sure.
You said first quarter, so.
Sorry, right, first quarter of 2020, of FY 2026, which for us means January to February.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Commissioner Giuliani, did you say that WIC did not have enough for the month, and what are your concerns?
So the WIC program is at the end of its allotment, which is why we don't have additional funding from October onwards. But this is where we're very grateful to Governor Lamont and the commitment to be able to help support women, infants, and children. This is 11,000 women, 11,000 infants, 30,000 children who depend on food and breastfeeding supports. So this is really helping young families, children up to the age of 5, who need food. That is literally what WIC provides for. And so we will require this backstop funding to be able to get us through, with the hope that federal funds, when they do come back, will be able to pay it back.
How much money do you think you'll need to get through the end of the month?
It's $200,000 a day to be able to run that program. So that comes out to a little over $5 million, $5.5 million for the month of October.
Secretary or Governor, I wonder on the public safety front, there are a lot of federally funded police task forces, gang, drug, narco. Any word from DESP on what the status of those will be operationally?
We haven't had a specific advice from DESP about that, but those sound like essential services to me. It's the sort of thing that the federal government would probably continue.
OMB already cut off $18 billion for New York City infrastructure programs. Are you concerned that road work and things like that could stop?
I'm concerned about everything, but to date, all the infrastructure that has already been allotted is continuing. That's road, bridges, rail, and that has not been cut off, unlike wind power, until recently. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. In terms of new grants coming out for additional infrastructure, time will tell. You can't stop a contract in mid-construction, and thankfully, in this case, they're not doing that.
And do you have any concerns? I mean, we just received a really, I would imagine from your perspective, good GDP report from the BEA. Of course, they will not be providing any more reports during this shutdown. But do you have any concerns about the Connecticut economy? I mean, obviously, if this is a month, I mean, it's a month.
Here's the deal. You look at the markets, they're sort of shrugging at this point. I mean, down today, up yesterday. I think they say, oh, my God, I've seen this before. This is just Washington tripping over itself again. But as time goes on, you're going to see a lot more hesitancy. You know, a lot of our economy is related to relationships we have with the federal government. We talked about roads and bridges and infrastructure. Talk about submarines, jet engines, and helicopters. You got to have a strong, reliable counterparty that you're working with. Right now, I'm feeling pretty good about where things are. I'd like to think the business community is doing okay.
You said you can't stop a contract in mid-construction, and that's exactly what happened with Revolution Wind. What have you been told, or has Garrett Ugalito, I don't see him here, has he been told that, you're doing this project, this bridge, I don't know, in Western Connecticut somewhere?
Garrett's feeling pretty confident. He's got very good relationships, and all those projects are pretty much on schedule, including the federal funding that we, are contracted for.
I want to ask a broader political question about your fiscal approach to things. Does the events of the last 24 hours and the potential for more federal retrenchment, does that reinforce your belief that you're taking the right approach fiscally, or does it make you think that it may be time to loosen some of your own personal guardrails as they approach to spending in Connecticut?
I like where we are. I talk to other governors. They don't have a rainy day fund. They don't have any reserves like we have here. They're in more trouble when it comes to not just WIC and SNAP, but if there was a recession, and there's a lot of hesitancy out there right now, we're in a better position. I'm glad I've got $4 billion to make sure I won't have to jack up your taxes or cut your education fund. That gives mayors and that gives a lot of families a little bit of confidence. We're the opposite of the federal government. We're trying to give people some certainty and stability that despite the ups and downs out of Washington, D.C., we can manage. At least we can manage for the near term, and that's what we're doing.
Have you done any contingency? Obviously, it's still up in the air, right? But January 1st, have you done any contingency planning about what will happen, what could happen to the federal insurance exchanges if at least some of the Republican congressional asks on that front go through?
If you're talking about the exchange, we met with Access Health just yesterday. They've been ahead of this curve. They're working in terms of all the alternate plans. If they did cut the heck out of, the subsidies on the exchange, what can cost a middle-class family, $500, $1,000 a month. And we're finding ways to at least mitigate what that cost would be to homeowners or families.
Jeff, have you heard anything about Head Start? I mean, is Head Start funding, I know that's been an issue.
I don't think we've got any news about Head Start or any issues with that.
We're good for the near term there.
But we're going to monitor it on an ongoing basis.
Is there anything the state can do, and the answer may be no, to fill in on things? In other words, a constituent calls the Social Security office, no one answers, they can't get through. Understanding those are federal responsibilities. Is there anything the state can do to help out on things like that to help anybody in the state of Connecticut, to help them out?
Well, we have a 211 hotline. We can try and answer questions, but I can't fill in for the federal government if they want to walk away from their responsibilities. If they don't want to stop answering the phone, I can't answer all the phones for them. If they want to stop inspecting hospitals and roads, we're doing everything we can to make sure that continues for the near term. But they have their responsibilities. We have our responsibilities. Honor your responsibilities.
I just want to be clear because I can be thick sometimes. You are open to the possibility of taking action in a special session before November 1st to appropriate funds out of the budget reserve fund or reallocate a general fund surplus perhaps to help Connecticut get through this shutdown. Is that my...
Help people get through this shutdown, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Governor, can I clarify one thing on WIC? Are you looking just for a while to keep afloat the benefits, or will there also be, with the WIC reserves, be able to continue to fund nutritionists and other WIC staff?
You got that?
Take that? Yep. So we have 9 contracted entities for WIC programs that support 23 sites and over 160 staff. And this investment of $200,000 a day will support all of that. WIC is a nutrition program. The goal is to help educate people on how to keep young moms, children, and infants getting nutritious food, and that really is dairy products, fruits, vegetables, whole grain wheat products. Those are the types of things that are going to be wrapped around, and the entire program will be kept whole, including new children who are born. So every day there are new children born in the state who potentially could be eligible for WIC, and we really want to try to maintain this entire program consistent so that there's no lapse in service for people in the state.
Did you say 11,000 adults and 30,000 children?
The total program is about 52,000 people. That's been a growth of over 16% since 2020. So we've been trying to get more outreach and get more people who are eligible into the program. Out of that 52,000 is 30,000 children, so up to the age of 5, 11,000 women, and 11,000 infants.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.